Hello, hello. Welcome to the Wheel and Chill show. Today is a very, very special day. We have a special guest. We are pivoting from our pivot, coming back to the Wheel of Time from the Lord of the Rings of Power. And we're very excited to do it because, first of all, this week is the week of the New York Comic Con panel. And we just found out what the panelists are going to be for that yesterday. And they're including Don Finn and Ciara Coveney. So we've got Elaine and Matt coming to the panel. Very exciting. So it just feels like a Wheel of Time week, right? So it's totally appropriate that we have Jason Denzel with us, the founder of Dragonmount, a Wheel of Time originalist in the truest sense of the word. So we're thrilled to have him here. Hello, everyone in the chat. We appreciate you all being here. Wolf Brother, Meme Reborn, Tavern, Random Noman, Beth Weston, what's up? Wolf Brother, I already said your name, but I love to see it. You've chatted multiple times. Okay, so we're going to do what we always do. Getting started. We're going to briefly introduce ourselves as the three hosts, and then we're going to let Jason just kind of say hi, and then we're going to jump into Wheel of Time, his experience with Robert Jordan. Apparently, like, he's got all kinds of stuff that he's done with the Wheel of Time franchise, and we're really excited to talk about it, but also he's got a book coming out soon, and we're going to talk about that too, so everybody get hyped. I'll start with myself. I'm Kritter XD. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube, obviously. I'm on Twitch. I've got a Discord. You should join it if you haven't yet. I'm Egwene Alvear on Twitter. I've got some merch now. All of my links are in the description of this video, and the same goes for all of these lovely people, so check those out. And Jason's website's actually on there too, and that's got like a lot of his stuff all in one place. So check it all out. I'm Kritter XD. Tavern, why don't you take it away?
Hola, yo me llamo Tavern. And today I would like to tell you that I have merch on Redbubble, and we have Wheel and Chill merch on Zazzle. And I TikTok. I kind of TikTok. I talk a lot.
It's true.
I eat Winespring Cafe's food.
Wait, we're not there yet.
No, I'm pre-plugging.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm pre-plugging. And hi, Nemithril, because I don't get to see Twitch chat like you do very well, so I saw him pop up. At least I think that's blurry for me, but yeah, he's there. So hi. That's it.
Amazing, Winespring. Say hey.
Hey, hi. I'm Winespring from winespringcafe.com, the Wheel of Time food blog. Go to winespringcafe.com. Make the food and eat it. You'll love it. Really also, I'm on Twitter as Winespring Cafe and Instagram as Winespring Cafe. So come say hey.
Check her out, everybody. Okay, and then our esteemed guest, we're super, super stoked. He's never been on the show before, which seems absurd. We've had other Dragonmount people, but never the founder. Like, what's going on with that? Anyways, Jason Denzel, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And you called me an originalist, and that really, I think, is just the most polite way of saying that I'm old or something like that. Because originalist, we just last month marked Dragonmount's 24-year anniversary of being online. So for 24 years, I've been running an amazing team of people that help run the Dragonmount Wheel of Time community. And that's opened up a lot of opportunities, a lot of fun stuff. Like London, Kritter, we were in London together for the Wheel of Time Prime Video premiere. That was awesome. It was good to meet you there and everything. So it's been a ride, yo. It's
been a ride, yo.
A lot of Wheel of Time, and a lot of things have happened, and that opened up a lot of doors for me to publish my own creative work. And so here we are with I'm the author of the Mystic Trilogy. The first book, Mystic, has been out since 2015. Mystic Dragon was the sequel, and now the third and concluding volume in the series, Mystic Skies, is coming out on October 11th, 1 week from today. And so everything's you can read all about it. You can see a book trailer that I put together for the whole series up on my website, jasondenzel.com. And I guess I can hype it up here at the very front, but the first two books right now are available for an ebook format for $2.99 each. So it's like $3 to get a copy of the first two books. So it's a great time to to jump in. If you sign up for my newsletter, my website, you can download a free prologue to the series that's not published in the books. There you go. Winespring's got it. She has a print version of it. You can get those if you come see me in person, then you'll get one of those. And then let's talk. And I want to talk about Rings of Power too, because I'm like totally on the bandwagon with that show right now.
Yeah.
Pivot. How many pivots is that?
Pivot. Wheel of Time, Rings of Power, Mystic.
A lot of pivots.
Oh my gosh, Jessica Zadai coming in clutch. Everybody hit that like button. Don't forget, it's very helpful.
Jason.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jason, before we start, I just want to say you're not old. You don't know what it is to be old until Beth Weston comes on your show and calls you old to your face live on stream. Putting that out there.
That's
Hi,
fair.
Beth.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth.
Hey, Beth. Yeah, also, Winespring and I had the pleasure of getting brunch with Beth this past weekend in Dallas. It was incredible. It was incredible.
So
I saw those
cool.
pictures. I saw that on your social media. That was pretty cool.
It was so much
Yeah.
fun. I just was in Dallas for a concert, and it was just like, who else is in Dallas? Winespring and Beth, and so it totally worked out.
Here we are.
And Beth says eventually if you pivot enough, you're just going for full circle. And that's true. That is so true. Okay, so I think because we've got the Mystic Trilogy, the third and final book coming out, right, soon. Why don't you tell us give us your elevator pitch for the series.
You're coming up with a hard question.
It's
a good one. That's a good one.
I prepped it.
Come on.
Oh man. Okay. All right. So
Wheel and chill. We do hard stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the hardest question that you can ask any author is tell us about what your book's about or something. It's like, I wrote a whole book. You want to know what it's about, read the 300 pages or whatever. No, but so the Mystic Trilogy the Mystic Trilogy started out as an idea that I wanted to explore, where I wanted to explore the life of a single person over the course of decades. I love stories like, although Robert Jordan's books I know take place over a couple of years and not decades, but I love big epic stories. I love stories that span time, that span generations and decades and so on. And once I even wrote a short story that took place like over a course of a billion years or a couple billion years.
Wow.
So I really like those big picture stories. So with Mystic, I set out, I wanted to write a series that was going to span one person's life. And so Mystic, the trilogy, takes place over the course of a lot of years. I won't spoil it for those who haven't read, but in the first book, the main character, Pamela, she's 16 years old, and there's an adventure that takes place there. And the second book, we time skip forward some time, and more stuff of significance happens. And in the third book, we do another time skip there. So this is a story about a woman who is born in an underprivileged class. She's a commoner, and she has the natural ability to sense the magic of her world all around her. It's called the mist. She can sense the mist, which is, in a way, I like to describe it as being similar to the Force and Star Wars. It's not a hard Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan magic system. It's more mystical, if you will. And I intentionally had it where it's right. And so there's the rules of this magic system are not as scientific and cut and dry. It's the magic is infused by and unveiled by emotion and by your life experience, and the more that you understand yourself and the world around you. And so this character, Pamela, has this natural affinity for being able to sense it. She knows that there is something out there in the world. She can sense it. She thinks of it as a song that only she can hear, but she doesn't quite know how to sing along with it. She wants to harmonize with it. And so it manifests in strange ways that she doesn't fully understand at first. And the first book is about, she gets invited unexpectedly to apply to become an apprentice to the high mystic, like a powerful master living out in the wilderness. And so in the first book is she's trying to go out and to convince this master to let her become an apprentice. And this is something that breaks law, it breaks tradition. So she's risking a whole lot to go out and do that. And the later books just explore, I won't get into the details, but the later books explore, her more journeyman years, I guess you could say. And then and the later books, or the last book, explores later in her life when she's even more accomplished to that. So this all takes place in, a time of political upheaval. She herself becomes the catalyst for this political upheaval because she's, a commoner doing things that are forbidden to her and that stirs everybody up, and now other commoners want to do it, and so it becomes she becomes a bit of a reluctant revolutionary in that way as well. So this is a story that I wrote it intentionally to be accessible. This is not a ginormous Robert Jordan sized book. In fact, if you were to take all 3 books and combine them into one, it's about the size of a Robert Jordan book. And again, that was done intentionally. Because it takes me a long time to write. I don't write as fast as Brandon because I've got a full-time job and other things going on in my life too.
And
right? And,
even if being an author is a full-time job.
Right? Yes, that's even then. Although one time I took a week off of work and I went and I rented a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. I went with my son and my teenage son, and we hung out and I barely had Wi-Fi out there, and I did nothing but write, and I wrote probably about a third of Mystic Skies, the entire book, a third of the entire book in a single week, just because I had nothing else to do and nothing else to focus on. And I kind of remember thinking to myself, wow, this I could do this all the time. That'd be really, if I could do this all the time, it'd be really cool, right? So
awesome.
Anyway, that's the dream, maybe someday.
Fingers crossed for you. I mean, I would love that too. Have I written a single book? No. Short story? Absolutely not. But man, that's the dream.
That is the dream. Maybe someday, Kritter.
Maybe someday. I'll have to stop making TikToks, and that doesn't seem likely. But hey, maybe.
We'll say this.
Neem Thrill in the Twitch chat says, no one writes as fast as he. Sanderson has a special Terran Grail typewriter. I think you're probably right about that.
Yes.
There's something going on with that guy. I don't know. I don't think he's human.
So lots of information on Jason's website, which is again in the description of this video on YouTube. So check that stuff out. It's pretty exciting, and the 3rd one coming out next week. Is that right? What is the
week from today?
Now.
That's right. A week from today.
Yes.
So you have a.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just finished chapter 14, A Moth in a Glass, in book 2, and it is so good. You guys, this series is really good. The first book was super bingeable. The pacing was epic. I thought you did a really good job. There was a lot of things happening and then boom, something big happening. And that is just delightful, when you're being introduced into this new world. And the second book, I can tell it'd been a few years, and it just the way that you are introducing new characters is really fun. I am instantly into some of them already, and I can't wait to see their role. I think maybe one of them's on the cover. I'm not totally sure yet because I'm only on chapter 14. But I mean, I really highly recommend these books. I'm going to finish Mystic Dragon so that I can read Mystic Sky as soon as it comes out. It's really good.
It's amazing. That's awesome. I just started Mystic today. As we know, there's a lot of stuff happening over the last week down here in Florida.
So just a few things.
I was going to try to start it yesterday, but I ended up having to pull down shutters. So I started today. I'm at the very beginning. I want to say I'm 2 chapters in or whatnot. But by the end of chapter 1, I was like, yeah, I'm going to read the rest of this. I mean, honestly, by the end of chapter 1, you're like, there's enough there to intrigue you. Some cool things that happen. And you're like, and that's just in chapter 1. I mean, nothing crazy happens, but you're like, there's enough
intrigued immediately.
Yeah, there's enough intrigue there that you're like, yeah, I need to keep reading this, which is cool. And I also love books in which you have to learn how to pronounce things.
Do you have a glossary?
Here's the thing. It's not like you need a glossary for it. It's just some of the spellings are very unique, but you know exactly what
father,
it is. Yeah, like mother and father are
I love the spelling.
But you know exactly what it is, right? But then you're like, is it pronounced father or is it pronounced father? So I'm like, son of a bitch. I get caught up in the small details. Yeah, really good.
So I have a question for you, Jason. What character arc are you most excited about your readers getting to in Mystic Skies?
So in each of the books, I introduce a new. The main character Pamela is a point of view character throughout the whole series, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second book, I introduce another point of view character that.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and everyone
Calm
loves
down,
her,
Munch, man.
and she steals. Everyone steals everyone thinks she steals the show. And in the third
Yeah.
book, I introduce another new character, and
All
everyone who
right.
has read it, all my early readers, are saying that she steals the show. So I'm excited
Okay.
for people to read this character. I won't say her name, because I want
Okay.
it. I also like it to be a surprise when you get there for the very first time. I tried to set up in such a way that you introduce her, I introduce her, you see her, you wonder who she is, you're thinking about her or whatever, and then boom, we jump into her head, and you're like, oh yeah, this is great. But I do introduce
Okay.
3 new point of view characters in the final book, and this is a series that doesn't have a lot of point of view characters. I think there's only 2 point of view characters in the first book, Pamela and Sim, her childhood friend. And then the second one is Pamela and Sim and the new character. So the 3, so I double the number of new characters in that third book. And one of them is who I'm excited for everyone to check out.
Some of those.
How many pages is this third book?
It's about the same as Mystic Dragon. So, how many pages? That's a good question. Usually, as my writer brain, I think in word count. The first book was 90,000 words. So a Robert Jordan book is usually between 300,000 and 400,000 words. A big Brandon Sanderson book, one of the Stormlight Archives, is 400,000, 450,000. So Mystic was 90,000, about a quarter size of a ginormous one. And then the second and third books are each about 120,000. I think the third one is a little bit longer. Yeah. They're still good. Meaty,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, there's still good. There's still plenty of adventure in all those books.
That's a lot. That's a pretty good amount of reading. I mean, and
it is
even more writing, man.
Yeah, I mean, the point of view thing is really intriguing to me because I read a series called the Bartimaeus Trilogy, which is really good, right? It's amazing, and there's basically 2 points of view in the first book. Then it goes to 3. It just stays as 3. So you have, you have the boy, you have the demon. He conjures up, and it cracks me up because the demon's always putting footnotes in the boy's chapters. They don't even have chapter names. It just either says the kid's name or the demon's name. That's it. That's the chapter name, back and forth. And it was that's what intrigued me originally, and it was amazing. So the fact that you have, point of view characters, it's not a lot of them. That's always, really intriguing to me because you get to see more of what they're thinking, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, and my goal, I did very intentionally. Mystic was my first novel, right? And before that, I had been writing, some other, big epic fantasy project, and it had tons of point of view characters. It's something that a lot of people, who are fans of Robert Jordan, I've seen over the years, and Brandon Sanderson, they want to write similar books, of course, and they should, and you should if you're one of those people listening to this, write your thing. But it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to write that many characters. I remember I talked to Brandon years and years ago. I can't remember what the topic was, but I asked him. It was when the first Stormlight book, The Way of Kings, was coming out, or he was getting ready to publish it or something. I was a beta reader on that first book, and so I was beta reading it, and I remember talking to him about it, and he said that one of the things that he learned from reading Robert Jordan and then later from writing Robert Jordan was how to effectively write books with many point of views. There's a trick to it, and or not a trick to it. There are probably many tricks to it. Yeah. And so when I started Mystic, I knew one of the reasons I started Mystic was because I had an opportunity and I had interest from Tor Books, the publisher. It had, that they had expressed interest in saying essentially like, hey, if you've got a book that's ready for us, send it to us and we'll take a look at it, right? And which was amazing. And
that's super cool.
I mean, it took me 15 years to build that relationship to get it to that point, but yeah, But anyway, so I went home and thought to myself, like, okay, I've got all these other projects going, but like I really want, like, I have this opportunity, I want to do it right, and so I'm just going to start over and roll up everything I've learned so far and all the years of writing and practice and screenplays and filming and everything I've done, and just roll up and see what I can create. And I'm going to keep it simple. And so that's why I very intentionally told myself, like, I'm going to have one point of view character for Mystic. And I just couldn't quite help myself, and I had two in there, and that's okay. I think it works to have those two characters. The story's better, I think, to have Sim's point of view and Sim's story in there as well. So, but with the second book, I thought, okay, great, I did that. I told a complete good story, published, someone liked it, it was out there. I think I did a good job here. I want to expand the story. It's a very natural thing to be able to do, but I'm not quite ready to go to 14 point of view characters, and that wouldn't quite be true to the feel of the series either. So that's where, this new character, Shevia, comes in, and she became the third point of view character. Mm-hmm. And then again, I expanded going into Mystic Skies. I'm like, okay, this is the conclusion of the series. I still don't want to go crazy, but also, like, my next project beyond this is a series that's going to have a lot of point of view characters. Like, I might I'm working on that now, and I haven't stopped to count, but it's probably 4 or 5 or 6, again 6 right now, with maybe a couple more to come. And so I see myself going toward a place where I'm writing more point of view characters. And so with Mystic Skies, I thought, okay, it's time to. This is taking off the training wheels, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so let's write 6 point of view characters here, and maybe with a couple other secret ones hidden in there. So I don't even know. It might be more than 6.
I cannot wait.
So there's a couple things in there going on. So so Mystic Skies was really the first time where I let myself expand that, and also by that point, the readers will have you already know Pamela really well. You already know Sim and the others, and so by the time you get to this third book, they're going to feel very familiar to you. Whereas, in addition to that, I'm going to give you somebody else that has an interesting perspective on the story and has an interesting adventure, and it's a new person for you to hopefully get to know and like or dislike, depending on the person.
Nice.
That
one thing I do
sounds
love
exciting.
one thing I love about the Eye of the World, I was looking back at like my old tweets for, I think it was I can't remember what Whattober Day 1 was, but I was like looking at my first tweets that like Twitter of Time dogpiled on me on my like normal account, not my Egwene account. And I was doing a reread of the Wheel of Time, and one of those tweets was like, oh my gosh, I love the Eye of the World because there's only like the main character POVs, and like once you get on further in the series, there are a lot more. And so I think there's a really like a fine line, a real sweet spot for like, don't go past that or it's just too much. And I feel like maybe every now and then Robert Jordan flirted with like oh my god, how many POVs are there gonna be in the series? Ultimately it was like a masterpiece, so it worked out in the end. But it was refreshing to get back to the Eye of the World and have just like you're back home,
just those few couple. Like you
don't have to worry.
He tiptoes that line. Robert Jordan tiptoed that line
like a tightrope walker
in several books.
And even then it's it's pretty much Rand's point of view for the first, I don't know, you guys agree, like the first half of the book or whatever, until we get to Perrin's point of view, like Shadar Logoth. And so that is, that's essentially, that's the length of Mystic. Like he basically went 90,000 words, give or take, right? We went 90 to 100,000 words of just Rand's point of view, not counting the prologue with Lew Therin. And we stuck with Rand for about a normal person's length novel before we introduce a new point of view.
But who was the dragon? So hard to tell.
I know, right? Who could it be? Gee, I wonder.
So
we're still trying to figure that out.
It sounds like people in the chat are hyped about checking out your series, and you definitely should. Okay, but that was a good time to pivot again to Wheel of Time talk. And so I was Googling for the stream, like, all right, let's get some images, going, like for this, little, I don't know, visual, I don't know, dynamic stuff. And so I Googled Jason Denzel Wheel of Time.
You about to Narduar him?
I don't know what that means.
Are you about to Narduar him?
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Oh, there's a guy that interviews rap stars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And his name is Narduar. And out of the blue, he'll be like, "What's it like to have eaten a cheeseburger at Joe's Billy Bob Shack?" And he'll be like, and the rapper will be like,
What do you know?
"How do you know that? I was 5."
Yeah, okay. Then I kind of am gonna Nardwar him. I, before the stream, first of all, asked him, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And he said no. So I am going to bust out this image, which is I think it's awesome. Let's do it.
Bring it out.
Look at this Wheel of Time tat. I just got one.
What?
Oh,
I got a Wheel of Time
goodness.
tat. So I found this Wheel of Time tat. It was on like Facebook or something. And yeah, so Tavern's got one. I've got one. Shoot, it's not. Where is it? We're not going to make you take your shirt off because it's right here. Winespring, where's your Wheel of Time tattoo?
It.
It's
Make
on my
me draw
neck.
something on her forehead.
Wait, you have one? Why
I
Have a Wheel of
mean-
Time tattoo?
I have like a Trinity tattoo. I don't think it counts.
It works.
Okay. So when's the
Counts.
Wheel of Time tattoo coming then, Winespring? Because all three of us,
Yeah.
all the other three of us have one. And this one
And
is
I'm working
Okay,
on
I'm feeling a lot of peer pressure right now, and I know I'm gonna.
And it needs you need to go big or go home because I'm working on a Wheel of Time sleeve.
Ooh, baby.
Okay, I'll get like a recipe tattoo down.
I love
Recipe
that.
tattoo. The honey cakes.
Winespring
The
Cafe.
honey cake tattoo.
I love that.
Okay, so Jason, when did you get this tattoo? Because I got my first one like a few months ago, and now I'm like all about Wheel of Time tattoos.
Yeah, so I got mine I got it in 2012, and I did that deliberately for a couple of reasons. I did that because it was the Chinese Year of the Dragon, that
Nice.
year, and
Yes.
so
Oh.
and it was also, that was I got it when I was, so A Memory of Light was published in January of 2013, right? But for me, my experience with the books, especially the last 3 that Brandon wrote, is a little bit different than some, than most other fans. And that, I read that book in its early forms in 2012. And so I got that tattoo. I was in the midst of, reading these early versions. So for me, it was a way of, I wanted to get a tattoo in general for a while, and I wanted to get that one. But for me, I got it to commemorate the ending of the book series. And, and so it was about that time that I was reading it for the first time. And if I wasn't, I forget the exact timing. I may not have been reading the actual pages, but I was, Brandon and I have been good friends for a while. And so he and I would text and talk by phone, and we would talk about the books and talk about his plans and talk about the things, whatever. And so for me, one day, are we allowed to do spoilers on here for real time
We've
spoilers?
got
Yeah,
spoilers,
like,
banners
spoilers,
everywhere. If you're in here, like,
Yeah,
you
okay,
haven't
got it.
noticed the spoilers.
All right, got it.
banners.
Yeah, so there's real-time spoilers.
Yeah.
Big spoilers here. Yeah, so like for instance, we were just talking on the phone one day, and he goes, "Yeah, so when Rand and Morden do that body swap at the end, and blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Whoa, they what?" And I hadn't heard that before. So this is how, and so this is kind of so many instances of things like this. And this is how the Wheel of Time came to a conclusion for me, is by talking about it with Brandon or reading the notes or whatever it was. So I was going through that at the time, and I was experiencing these books, and it was also, like I said, the Chinese Year of the Dragon, and the Chinese zodiac is something that means a lot to me in my personal life. I'm also a martial artist. I do an old school form of Kung Fu. So a lot of that I was just starting off in that journey of learning Kung Fu in those years. And so it all just felt like a good time to get a big, badass Robert Jordan dragon tattoo.
That is badass.
Looks amazing.
It's beautiful.
It really does look amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It is never, I mean, it doesn't, that one picture you're posting or whatever, that I took that, right when it was still painful on my back.
Oh, really?
It was like the
Fresh.
day that I got it done. Yeah,
And now that you mention it, there is a little bit of redness along the bottom line there.
yeah, and to be honest with you, like, because I can't, the way that we're doing this right now, I can't see the exact image that you're doing. So there are a couple of versions of it.
Oh, sorry.
looks
I
like
know.
this.
That's okay. That's
Damn it,
okay.
I was
But
gonna
I know
pose.
which image. There's one where it's unfinished. It's like the brown border filled in all around it
It
and
is,
everything.
yeah.
And
Yeah, there's.
okay, yeah. So that's the final version.
Yeah,
So
it's very pretty.
I had it done over.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah, so sorry for ambushing you. I'm just, as I
No,
said,
please do.
very
I'm
much
surprised you
into
did it. If you,
tattoos.
we could probably even go deeper. There's a picture of me with hair and no beard at like age, I don't know, 23 or something. Like literally a 20-year-old photo of me and Robert Jordan at Comic-Con, and I
See,
look
that's
like
what I
this
was looking
fresh-faced
for.
baby.
I didn't find that one,
Yeah.
though. I literally was like,
Oh,
Jason Denzel, Robert Jordan, and I didn't find it. So I was like, well, never mind.
Oh yeah,
This tattoo
I'll,
was
you know,
awesome.
tell you what, I put it on social media a couple times. When we're done here, I'll put it out on social media. And I'll tag you, and you can retweet it.
Amazing. That's
amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you said that you talked to Brandon Sanderson while he was writing Memory of Light, which is so cool. I want to talk to Brandon Sanderson in my life sometime. I'm actually just now finishing Rhythm of War for the second time, so I plan to start your books soon thereafter. But okay, so
great. No pressure to live up to follow in Brandon Sanderson.
right after the Sanderlanche. So okay, I also see that you visited Robert Jordan in his home. What was that like?
Whoa, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I never visited Robert Jordan in his actual home. The first time I ever, the first time I ever visited there was after he had passed away. It was for his funeral, and so I'll back up a little further because it's a fun story. The way that I got to meet Robert Jordan, got to communicate with him, was he sent me a cease and desist letter, which was in hindsight pretty awesome. And yeah, so at the time, in the early days of Dragonmount, I was still in college, and I was my major was in computer graphics and animation. I wanted to work at places like Pixar and ILM and all this, and so I was into that sort of thing. And so I gathered a whole bunch of friends, many people from the lovely Wheel of Time community that are out there, and we decided, hey, we're going to make an animated version of the Dragonmount prologue. Now this is like 2000. This is like 1999, 2000, or something like that, right?
Whoa.
And so this is early days of like 3D animation, I'm talking about. And we were students more or less at the time, maybe some of us were a little more professional, had a little more experience than others, but I was like, hey, we're doing this Dragonmount thing. This is rocking. There's, everyone's excited about it. And I'm, young and ambitious and on fire, and let's go, let's do all the things, all the Wheel of Time things. And so I started working on this animated project. We wrote a script. We had voice actors record the different roles and everything. And we put it together, and I'll have you know, it was very faithful to the prologue. It was not any Winter's Dragon type adaptation, but very, very faithful and much shorter. But we got it going, and I got a letter in the mail, in the snail mail, like in my actual physical mailbox, a letter from Robert Jordan's agent saying, cease and desist and yada, yada, yada. You cannot do this. This is, you do not have the rights to this property, and this property is worth, it's worth a lot, and, you can't do this. And if you have any questions, call so-and-so. Or actually, I think it just said, call us right away at your convenience or whatever. And so I can't remember if I called him. I was 24 years ago or whatever, right? But I got in touch with them, and they said, and I kind of explained, look, I'm not looking to make money. And this is before, these days, there's tons of people that go out and they make, fan videos and fan films and that sort of thing. And this wasn't a thing in 1999, right? It was very, very rare. And so this was territory that certainly Robert Jordan and his agent hadn't gone and tread before. And so I kind of explained, and they understood right away. They could see what I was doing, and they saw the website. But they eventually just said, okay, so Robert Jordan is willing to let you make this film, but it's he's going to give you a limited, non-exclusive, right to make this thing. You can't make a profit off of it. Got all these details, and he has to approve all the materials, and he can pull the plug at any point. And I'm like, awesome, that's great.
Sure.
And then I asked him, I said, how is he going to approve all the material? And they said, oh, you can just email it to him. Here's his email address. And I was like, okay. So this was like I don't know, like I felt like I'd won the lottery or something like that. I
Yeah.
had Robert Jordan's email address.
Got that
right?
email.
Right?
Yeah.
He had an AOL account.
Nice.
You know?
I'm sorry, what?
It was an AOL, America Online, right? Exactly.
Never
right?
heard of it. No, that's not true. My
So-
first email was an AOL.
Winespring is too young for that stuff. Doesn't know.
So I emailed him, and then he was very polite and funny, and over time, initially he signed all his emails, like sincerely Robert Jordan, and then eventually he started. Then he shortened it over a couple months to just RJ. And he had a tendency to write in all caps, which made me feel like I was being yelled at by the Dark One. Like, Jason, where is my script that I need to approve or whatever, And it's like, oh, yes, sir, And
funny.
but he over time he stopped signing it Robert Jordan, and he signed it just RJ, and then maybe he signed it as Robert, and then he started signing it as Jim, but his real name. And Rob, for those who don't know, probably everyone watching this does, Robert Jordan is a pseudonym for James Oliver Rigney, and he went by Jim to his friends. And so by that point, the project kind of fizzled. We never really got it done. Although I do have somewhere, I got some animatics and some graphics and stuff. I should probably do like a little featurette on that. But we never finished the project, which was okay. We moved on to other shinier things. And he didn't really care, but we kind of became like email pals and friends, and we would talk about lots more than just books and stuff. We talked about, I don't know, all sorts of things. Like when my kids are now teenagers, but when my oldest son was born, he wrote me a nice letter congratulating me about that.
Nice.
When I heard when he died, I reached out to Alan, one of his assistants, and I told him, because it was 2007, this was a thing. I said that I had a hard drive crashed and I had lost some of the emails that I'd gotten from Jim, and because Gmail wasn't a thing then, right? And so
Right.
all your emails were stored on our computer still directly, and I lost the hard drive, and so I lost some of these. And I said, could you go through his email and could you forward me any correspondence? I'd like to keep that. And he said, well, he didn't have any of the digital stuff, but Jim was someone who printed out emails. He was that guy. He was, if you're watching this, he was that parent of yours or that grandparent of yours that prints up all the emails and files them away. And so he had printed up all these emails for me, but the only ones he kept were not the ones about me talking and asking about Wheel of Time. He kept all the ones that were more about the personal correspondence, the things like I said, hey, we just bought our first house. We just had our first baby. We just, had this life event. And so he kept them all and kept them in like his personal friends folder or whatever. And
that's cool.
It was really sweet that I love that was how he thought of me, and not just the fanboy out there,
Right.
And right before he died, when he was on not right before, but on his last book tour for Knife of Dreams, I got there late to the event, to the book signing event or whatever, and I was kind of standing in the crowd, and so are there any questions? And there's a crowd of like 400 people, and no one wants to say anything. I'm like, how can no one want to ask a question before, or whatever? I couldn't believe it. No one raised their hand or whatever. And so I'm like, if no one else is. So I raised my hand, and he pointed at me and said, oh yeah, this is Jason. Everyone, this is Jason. He runs Dragonmount, and he's a dear friend of mine.
Aww.
And I just like melted there like on the spot. And I'm like, I can't remember what I asked him or wanted to ask him, but that's the kind of guy he was. And we met a couple times at different conventions, and usually whenever we'd be in the same town, I tried to get a group of people together and go out and go to dinner with him, and we've got pictures of that. And we were at a big table once, and he was. Did you guys ever hear about the gasp moment? It's another tangent, but you'll love this.
I don't think so.
All right, so this for older Wheel of Time fans who have been around in the community for a long time will remember the gasp moment. And what the gasp moment was, well, I'll tell you what happened first. We were at dinner, and this is before, I forget which book this was. I think this was before Knife of Dreams came out. It was And what he said is that somebody asked him, like, are there, what are you excited for people to read in this new book? And he said that there is, and he said he thought about it, counted very carefully, and he said, there is a scene in this next book where when you read it, you will gasp out loud and say, how terrible, how horrible, And so, me, and this is before social media, but, the next day when we got around to blogging that, it just went like wildfire throughout the community. Matt Hatch, the innkeeper over in Theoryland, probably has an entire 2/3 of his website dedicated. Ask Matt sometime about the gasp moment, because the whole community for about a year until that book came out went absolutely ballistic trying to figure out and speculate what this scene was going to be. What was this gasp moment that was going to make everyone go, how terrible? And it was all sorts of everything you could possibly imagine, from like, what happened. And what it ended up being was he was referring to the scene where the sea folk, so I guess it was right before book 10 came out. After the cleansing of Sidene, then when the Choden Call light up, and the big giant Choden Call statues, that there's a statue out in Tremolking,
yep.
the island down there, and what happens is that when they cleanse the source, the statue lights up and its eyes light up, and the native people who live there see that. They see it as a religious sign that that the end is coming, and a whole community of them commit a ritualistic suicide. And so, which is a terrible moment, and that's what he was referring to. And so it wasn't what the community had expected.
Nobody guessed that. No way.
Nobody guessed that. But also, like, and I think too, I look at that as a writer, and I see how when you're a writer and you're into it, whatever characters you're writing are the ones that you're in their heads, you really are feeling for them. And a lot of times I could see him, like he was writing the sea folk in that moment and in that chapter and that scene. And yeah, in his head, he's got this whole thing, explained out, and he is envisioning it. He's feeling, trying to channel this angst, this sadness, this horror that these people are feeling. But if we, the readers, haven't been invested in that culture as much as we have, say the Aiel or somebody else, then it's harder for us to kind of relate to and to feel that, that gasp emotion, maybe like he was. But anyway, so that was the gasp moment, and the whole point reasons that this is the kind of thing that we'd go out to dinner with him, and he would sit down and tell us this, and we'd report it, and the whole thing would blow up for a year as people tried to figure out what he was talking about.
That is hilarious. So I guess how did you feel when you found out that there was going to be a show? Like, finally, did you think it was inevitable, first of all, or because of how like ridiculous and storied the whole thing was, did you think it was like, this is never going to happen?
No, it was absolutely inevitable. If not for just for the simple reason that it was too big of a property, too valuable of a property, and there's too many people reading it and wanting it. It was going to happen someday. It was always going to happen.
Yeah.
Just like, whether it's next year, like maybe he's speculating, or 10 or 20 years, someday there's going to be Mistborn movies or TV shows or something.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's inevitable. There's too much. It's too good to not make, you know what I mean? And it's too big of a cultural phenomenon in the, you're right, science fiction and fantasy it's the heyday. We are living in the heyday of science fiction fantasy shows, right? And so it's no surprise that that, especially after the success of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, that was going to happen. Also back then, when in the early 2010s, they were working hard to adapt the books into theatrical films, because if you go in your Wayback Machine to 2009 or 2008, 2009, that was the thing. This is before Netflix and TV shows, and TV blew up again. So everything was theatrical films, and the best model for that were the hugely successful Lord of the Rings movies. And this is shortly before the Hobbit movies. So the studios, if you put yourself in the mind of a studio exec in 2009 or 2008 or whatever, it was, I need a fantasy show that I want to have I want to have success like the Lord of the Rings. We need a fantasy movie series. They're making The Hobbit right now, so I have to compete with The Hobbit. What else is out there, guys? And so, it's a whole nother thing. But the group Red Eagle, who is now called IWAT, who are still involved in the show. Their names are in the opening credits of the Prime Amazon Prime TV show. Those guys had the rights to the series, and I was working with them to write treatments, to write outlines, or like think of it as an outline that they would take to a movie studio and pitch the idea. So they were the Red Eagle guys were going around from studio to studio all through Hollywood back then, trying to sell, hey, this is the Wheel of Time. This is what it's like. And, here's a story treatment, and it's put together by these writers, and these guys are fans and everything else. So I was involved on that level. And so again, having the chance to talk to some of the studio people that were involved there, they were hyped for it. They knew how big and successful it was, and they could see it. It just wasn't, there's all sorts of Hollywood politics that go into things, of course, there's costs and all that. But beyond that too, was the simple fact that, back then, what I was instructed to do was to write, a treatment write a 3-hour film, a 2.5, 3-hour film that would adapt the entirety of The Eye of the World, and so, which could be done. I think it's done better when it was done over 8-hour episodes of the Amazon Prime, right?
Yes.
But that was their thinking back then, was to try and get 7 films out of it, so roughly 14 hours to adapt 14 books, and clearly there'd be a lot more combining. That was the thinking back then. And so, I didn't know that it could necessarily be done super well. I think it possibly could, but it would be pretty different, even more different than what we're seeing, Yeah. And but there was the way that they talked about it. It was never a question of if it would get done. It was a question of when this thing was going to actually get adapted.
Sure.
It's amazing, because when you have like Lord of the Rings, which was a trilogy, and then they kind of abused The Hobbit by making it a trilogy. That's the norm, right? You have a movie, a sequel, maybe a trilogy of movies. What really, I think, opened the door was when they took that last book of Harry Potter and they split it in 2. People realized, ooh,
we can do this. This is allowed now.
This is allowed now.
Yeah. And then, of course, streaming services came out, and they started doing these, these longer
prestige
episodical
television.
types. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And I'm kind of glad that they're doing it that way with The Wheel of Time, because I think if they'd have tried to make like a movie or 2 or maybe a trilogy out of it, it would not. It wouldn't be. Yeah.
I think we are so privileged to have the ability that we have a place like Prime Video putting together all this money to make an 8-hour adaptation, essentially, of The Eye of the World. Love it or hate it, I think we all know it's great, and it has some challenges, and sometimes there's a lot of challenges, and certain things probably pandemic induced or not. But for all of that, though, I mean, it's remarkable that they've even had this opportunity to put together 8 hours, and we get to see how awesome, like the 2 rivers just looks stunning. We got the Shadar logo, these set pieces that we're seeing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And the sad thing
We got
is,
to see the ways.
8 hours. 8 hours really isn't enough.
It's
I
not.
mean,
We
they
need
crammed a lot. They crammed
That's
a
what we
lot
saw.
into there. But I mean,
they also, the 8 hours probably would have been enough to do the book, but then you also had to account for that there were the side, they had to put in more of the warrior stuff and more of the, they had to bring forth the Aes Sedai. And that's something that, there's no agenda there, that people claim, that was a directive that I had even when I was working on these treatments early on, is that the studio straight up told us that, they'd ask us like, okay, tell us about, what is the book about? And we'd explain and everything. But then they say, okay, but what what makes the Wheel of Time shine? Why is the Wheel of Time different from everything else out there? And the answer is not because it's about a bunch of farmer boys, important farmer boys who leave the two rivers. It's about, these other things. And it ultimately comes to the White Tower and the Aes Sedai and the Aes Sedai hunting the dragon and everything. And so the studios say, yes, that's it. That's what we want. And even back then. And so the direction that we had were to bring forth the White Tower, bring forth the most interesting parts of this series, bring forth the intrigue of the Black Aja, bring forth the Red Aja wanting to gentle the dragon and all that stuff. And having no involvement with the Prime Video series, as soon as we saw it, it was clear that's exactly what they did. They had the same direction. And then also on top of that, they had the fact that in order to get this show made, they had to have Rosamund Pike and, to have someone of her caliber and Daniel Henney. And for them to be involved required that they are, on roll call number 1 and number 2, which means they are going to have the most scenes by contract, which means that as long as they are in the show, I don't think that they will be in the show for all the seasons. That's my guess, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Interesting.
Spoilers!
Yeah, I'm
kidding.
Interesting,
and I don't know,
yeah.
but I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that that they are probably under contract for X number of seasons, and after that there's a passing of the torch, so to speak. But and that would make sense because we know what happens to Moraine, at about
what?
The book 5 mark, right? And so
Something
Season
happens
what?
in Moraine.
Season 4,
What?
perhaps?
Yeah.
Gasp.
and
Gasp.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's
three. I'm calling it end of season 3.
Okay, we'll see.
Remember the story.
That's the big
Remember
thing
the
at the
story.
end of season 3.
It's
Yeah.
Rafe.
That would make sense. And also, again, just think about it. Like if you knew that if these big stars were signing on to this long-term series or whatever, it would make sense that 3 sounds like a nice good number of seasons to sign up for to kind of get rolling. And I could see if Rafe truly had 7, 8 seasons in mind, it's right for the whole series, then it would be about season 3 that that the docs happened, and that's where you get Rosamund Pike for 3 seasons. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get her for the whole thing. Maybe they'll bring her back. I don't know, but that's my guess and speculation.
Speculation time. So
good.
you're thinking, you're saying that Rosamund Pike will get through whenever the whole Moraine's poof happens, right? And that we don't see her. Like you think they've changed the story so much that we don't see her again?
Oh, I mean, bringing her back. I don't know. Maybe they do for the final season. I don't know. I don't know what they do with it. Honestly,
And they'd only bring her back for the marriage. That's it. The wedding.
Come on. Tavern.
Yeah. I don't know. But you know what? I'm
Imaginary love thing.
I love Robert Jordan to death, and I will always love the man and his books, wherever. But I'm not above being lovingly critical. At times, and I think it was a big swing and a miss to have Moraine and Thomas. It comes out of nowhere. It just doesn't. It never really worked for me. Moraine and Swan makes far more sense.
Much more
Both
sense.
and the vibe and everything else. The filmmakers saw that and I agree. But yeah.
Excuse me.
I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and I'm like, where did that come from? Just from a dead sleep.
Keeps you up.
I wake up, I'm sweating. I'm like, where did it come
Winespring is
from?
allergic to Tom and Moraine.
Immediately, I reject it. Everything in me rejects it. Yes.
I mean, she's not even really story-wise. I mean, yes, like she has a role. Brandon gave her a role, but really, I don't think you need Moraine in the back third of the series to successfully tell that story and its themes and everything. I think her job can be given to, Cadsuane, or it can be given to other people. It can be done in other ways. So
that's interesting.
if they bring her back, and I hope they do, because I hope they stick to the books as closely as possible, but if they do, I think it might be driven more by, does Rosamund Pike want to come back? Does she want to continue being into this thing, rather than, her just being obligated from the get-go, on doing it. So we'll see.
We will.
I would love to see her come back. I'm always kind of freaking out about the show and what they're changing. So far, I've been okay with it, but I don't know. I do enjoy the show. I like it. Like we've talked about this on Wheel and Chill before. It took me about 5 episodes to finally just say screw it. I'm just gonna ride the fun. But I do enjoy it. I really wish that they keep her around. At least I know that she has to disappear at some point, but I do want to see her come back. If they continue that with Soiraine, totally okay with it.
Soiraine for life.
Although I think half
Soiraine.
half the dude bros in the world would probably implode.
Let them implode. I cannot.
Bye.
I cannot. Also, just take a little breather and say thank you all in the chat. I know we're not calling you out as much as we sometimes do. I see that you all are very invested in Moiraine coming back, and I agree. Mimi Heathrell says I just fixated on Moiraine reminding Rand to stop being a wool-headed idiot. Yeah, that's important.
Well, that's also what Min's job is. Min is doing that. Cat Swain is going to do that.
Yeah, Min's good at that.
And when you think about in book, I mean, you can get away with a little more in books, especially big books like Robert Jordan. But in TV, you really kind of think about you're right. There probably is going to be someone to remind Rand, that he's a woolhead and to keep him grounded. That's a big theme.
Exactly, keep him grounded.
But you don't necessarily need 4 characters doing it like we have in the books. If you got 1 or 2, and who knows, but you at least have to ask yourself, what function is Moiraine having in the narrative? And if you have her do these things, that means probably, if she is that person, that probably means less of a role for Cadsuane. Maybe that means a little bit less of a role for other Aes Sedai and other people that play that role on his life.
Yeah, I think Rosamund Pike would be kind of wasted if her role whenever she comes back is to put Rand in line, right? To me personally, I would want Rosamund Pike's Moiraine to have something to do herself to further the side of the light. It's kind of like in the last battle, there are some characters who get to do really cool stuff. Egwene, for example, and Matt.
Yeah, she did really great stuff.
Some people get to do really cool stuff, and then other people, no offense to them because they're incredible and absolutely necessary, but they're somewhat of glorified sidekicks. Moiraine is one of those. Nynaeve eventually gets to flex with her treating Alana in the cave.
Oh yeah.
But Moiraine still is just kind of she's just kind of there. And so I want her to be more valuable than what she was.
I think but when she comes back, I think Moiraine also serves the purpose of calming him down.
But again,
not just
that's
reminding him
for his
benefit.
I
get it. No,
no,
I get it. But when she returns, it really affects him.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
I mean, it's a really powerful moment.
She and Moiraine, both Rand and Moiraine, have in those later books, they represent a really important thing that was really clearly important to Robert Jordan himself, and one of his big themes of the series is this idea of the weary warrior finally getting a chance to rest. And we see that in the final scene, the epilogue of the final book. Rand, and this is straight Robert Jordan, this is not a Brandon invention, this is actually a scene Robert Jordan did, where the whole thing with the pipe, the magical pipe, and how do you light the pipe? But more interesting to me is Rand sitting there and thinking to himself, I've seen all the palaces. I've seen all the things. I just want a quiet little cabin to chill out. And you can almost, put yourself in the context of Robert Jordan, of a guy who came up with a lot of these ideas, was noodling on these story ideas when he was in Vietnam or shortly after he came back from Vietnam. And the initial kernel idea was, Rand, maybe those watching, maybe some people don't know that originally Rand was named something else, Rise or something like that, but he was a 35-year-old man. So imagine Tam Althor and Rand kind of combined. Yeah, the original version of Rand was conceived as he was a 35-year-old guy who just came home from the Isle War, and he was world weary, and then he finds out that he's the Dragon Reborn. He's like, oh, here we go again, even bigger this time. And that was where the story initially began. And then he kind of realized that hey, this is better to have the kids a little more naive. Let's make him younger. And then so that older part of him splintered off and became Tam Althor. And that's why
fascinating.
Yeah. And so for his entire life, Robert Jordan always said he knew what the final scene of the series was. And, ultimately what that final scene was that person finally getting a chance to relax and say, like, I could, but I'm not going to get involved with all these kings and queens and deciding who's the new Amerlin. I'm just going to retire. And Moiraine kind of represents that same idea again. She comes back and she's less reluctant. I mean, she's there for the important stuff, but she's less reluctant to get involved. She wants to settle in with Tom, and she wants to, kind of have a new reset life. And we see that through a lot of women, especially who have been stilled and then healed, and they want to, they see it as a way to kind of start over in a new way. Yeah. And so, Rand and Moiraine kind of represent that same thing. So again, put yourself into TV land, which is great. Maybe if you give that theme to, if you have Rosamund Pike, then that becomes her end story, the whole weary warrior thing. And that would, go well with what she's doing, because they've set her up to be this, road warrior from the very beginning with Lan. But then you kind of have to take it a little bit away from Rand if you do that. On TV, if you've got Moiraine as your weary warrior who's trying to settle down, that's her theme. You got to find you have to at least think about maybe a different angle for Rand. And what's Rand's thematic conclusion?
I mean, he could have a happy ending instead of this like mystery ending, because like in season 1, for example, his big thing was that he wanted. What?
You're gonna take away the mystery ending, Kritter?
No. I think the lighting the pipe could totally stay. But his like, we're left open with which one of the girls is going to follow him first, all this other stuff. But like all he ever wanted, right, is from season 1 was to have his farmhouse, to have Egwene with him, to have kids. Like if we see him with that while also mysteriously lighting a pipe, I would be very happy. But I love happy endings.
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I mean, if they use the same set they used for his little battle,
his dream, I know, like, or his,
battle with
that'd be good. The same person.
Igraine and and Carrie, Kari Altor. I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think that I think he always intended it to be that Rand was a foundling because he was born on Dragonmount. I think that was a pretty early idea. So yeah, I don't think that they were ever the same person. Maybe they were, but I don't think so. And I haven't read every word of the notes because there's a lot of freaking notes. Yeah. I've seen a lot of them, but I don't think so. I think that
that's a theory that's going around right now. The way they're portraying it on the show, a lot of people are speculating that because Tam came back with this redheaded woman that he was married to, and the baby, and that she could drink a lot. And all of this stuff that they've made Carrie be in the show alludes itself to possibly being Rand's mother from the get-go, Tigraine, to the point where they've switched the quarterstaffs. They've switched to spears, from what I can tell on the show as well.
I would be disappointed if they made a change. Like I think it seemed like. I'm not sure what that would buy, but I still think that like the woman that we saw in episode 7 of the TV show, that badass battle scene, I believe that is Tigraine, who is the former daughter heir of Andor. Yeah. So that ran away. Final thing, absolutely. When I was in I don't know, so it's like 2001, 2002, again, when I was a lot more into filmmaking and I was teaching myself how to write or learning to write and doing a lot of things. I actually wrote a full-length feature screenplay called Maiden of the Spear, and it was just I never did anything with it, of course, but it was Tigraine's story, and it was all about like it was 120 screenplay pages of Tigraine. She has she's got little baby Galad, and Gitaro Moroso has the foretelling and says you need to leave Andor tonight in order to, or else the world is doomed and all this. And so she escapes in the middle of the night and goes and becomes a maiden, becomes an Aiel.
Wow.
And all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun to write. I mean, I couldn't ever do anything with it, of course, but and I haven't read it in many years, but I think in that thing, like I think I did change it. It was all really close to canon. The only thing I changed, I think I made King Laman the guy who cut down the tree of life and started the Eye of War. I think I made him, and this is just my own thing. It's fan fiction. It's nothing but fan fiction. But I made him a male channeler because it made for a much better climactic scene at the end, that what he could secretly channel or something like that. But it was just goofy stuff. But it was a lot of fun to write that story, and I really enjoyed. So I have a special place in my heart for Tigraine and her story, and Shail, the name that she took.
I think it was probably one of the most, if not the most impactful scene in the show.
Oh, it was my favorite. It was my favorite scene in the show for sure.
By far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that
Epic.
they never said her name, they never said anything. Yet, I mean, everybody who's read the books, of course, knows who that is. But even new people that don't know anything about the story other than what they're seeing on the show, like my wife, because she's never read the books, she was like, "Wow, who was that?" She wanted to know who that was, and I was like, "That is Carrie Althor." I didn't. She would stab me in my sleep later.
So question for you. We had a couple people further up in the chat speculating about this. I think Sith Guy and Glenn the Geeky Hippie were both saying they hope the show goes the Taimon Dread route. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a great question. I hope they do too, because I think that's what Robert Jordan, again, if he were sitting here and I were having a beer with the guy, I'd probably lean in and be like, "Look, Jim, level with me, man. Writer to writer. Like, come on. We know, obviously, that you meant for Demandred to be Mazrim Taim, and then the pesky fans, like me and all the others at Dragonmount, we figured it out, and that annoyed you, and you changed your mind." And here is the evidence that we have from your own notes to prove it. And so, yeah, because I like that, because again, I love Brandon. I love everything. I love how we did this. Lovingly critical of it. I think that Demandred being the savior of Shara is completely out of left field, and I know that was part of the intention or whatever, but I just don't. I never really felt it, in some ways, and it was weird. Great. The scene was amazing. The scenes and Demandred was awesome. The way that he called out, Rand, and then he settled for land, and all these things, and he all this. It was all well executed. It just felt a little bit out there. And when I go back, I was on another podcast recently where we were covering a chapter where Demandred was a point of view character. So I reread that chapter in preparation for the podcast, and I'm thinking to myself, like, it doesn't feel like Bow of the Wild, talking about this, and like it just doesn't feel like him. It doesn't resonate with me. It really resonates with me with him being Mazrim Taim. I know it is canon that it is absolutely not him. We know for a fact they are not the same people as certainly as of book 9, but everything leading up to book 9 before that, like the writing was on the wall, and I think the fans figured out that's when the internet blew up, was right around those books 8 and 9. That's when Robert Jordan got online for the first time. That's when Robert Jordan started reading the fan theories online, And so I really believe, that what he did is that he saw that we figured out this big mystery and a really good, clever twist that he had. It was really well done.
And a catchy name.
But he got figured out, and he changed his mind and ran in another direction. So
it's like he's sitting there, he's looking online for the first time. Oh, this is really cool. Oh, they have theories.
Son of a bitch! They did
what? So okay, you mentioned earlier, Jason, that you and I were #blessed and got to go to the premiere. So do you have any moment or interview or anything from your trip to London that really stands out to you, best possible moment from your trip?
I mean, being in the London Bridge and having a party in London Bridge, a Wheel of Time themed party at London Bridge was pretty cool,
That was pretty cool, yeah.
Looked amazing.
I mean, I guess whatever.
There were so many amazing things. Going to the White Tower and doing all that. It was great. One of the moments that I wouldn't say it was the best moment, but one of the moments that stood out to me and that I always loved is growing, when I was much younger, certainly when I started Dragonmount, Rand was my boy. I was, if they had TikTok back then, I would have been Rand XD or something. Like it was just he was my guy. And that's part of the reason I got a dragon. He was my boy. And so on the blue carpet when I met Yosha Stradowski, that was a pretty cool moment for me. I was thinking like, here, this kid here was, when I was his age, was my hero. You know what I mean?
That is so
he still is my
cool.
hero. I love Yosha. It was a cool moment. I asked him, I said, hey, you've read more than, it seems like you've read more than anyone else. Like what scene are you really looking forward to filming, of the future books? And without hesitation, without even blinking, he looks at me and he goes, the box. And meaning like the Miles Wells and being in the box. And so I'm like, okay, this guy gets it.
I'm not gonna lie, like when I was there, Rosamund Pike kind of snuck up on me and Daniel. She just like appeared. I was turning and like talking to my stream, and then I turned around and she was literally right there. And she was an angel on earth, right? Like she was beautiful, whatever. But like there was something about Yosha. Like I've met a lot of beautiful people. Like you all are beautiful people. But I turn around and I see Yosha standing right in front of me, and I literally just like shorted out. He's like one of the most beautiful people you will ever see in your life.
That entire the two rivers breeds them well, man.
God, I literally was almost speechless. And again, like I'm a lawyer. Like I've talked in front of like judges and all this other stuff, and like, but he more than anyone else in my entire life kind of left me like stammering. So I felt like such an idiot. But yeah, what?
I'm
Sorry.
kind of curious about like his whole because he shaved his head. He had his head was shaved for that event, and it's going to be shaved for season 2 most likely, I'm guessing. Right. And so that's going to be that's not canon. I wonder if people are going to freak out about Rand shaving his head.
I mean, it makes sense. Like if he's going into hiding or whatever, he wants people to believe he's dead. Like cut your hair if you've got red hair and you look like
Have you seen a redheaded guy?
It makes perfect sense.
Redheaded guy. I saw a red stubbled guy, but I didn't see a redheaded guy.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's harder to tell. But anyway, so yeah, Yosha was cool. Rosamund was incredible. And somebody said that Rosamund Pike doesn't appear or sneak. She visions in. She appears, essentially.
She just exists, manifests.
She manifests. That's exactly what she did. She literally manifested, just like out of thin air. And that was another one where I was like stuttering because I was like, wow. For everyone else, we like saw them go through the line, and we're like, okay, it's gonna be, like we've got Loyal coming up over here and all this other stuff. But like Rosamund, she just. No prep time, nothing. It was fine.
I would have probably proposed on the spot.
I almost did. What can I say? Yeah, she was awesome.
I would have been like, "Will you marry me? You have a wedding ring."
Oh my gosh, Tavern.
It's gone. I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, that was a cool experience.
What do you think is next? I mean, okay, so we've got the show, right? I know that there have been some fan-made tabletop role-playing games for the Wheel of Time in the past. There hasn't been an official one that I know of.
No, there was
Is there an official one?
A D&D
there is?
campaign. There was a book.
It was a campaign.
Right. Jesus Christ.
I'm talking about like the whole world. Maybe a video game. I mean, have you heard any in the rumor mill about anything like that?
Oh,
I know
hear
we had an old video game, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think those things will also happen. It's one of those inevitable things, but I also think it's going to be tied to the success of the TV show. The group that so I don't know as much as I used to in terms of the exact state of things, but my understanding of it is that so when Red Eagle, the two individuals who collectively called themselves Red Eagle Entertainment and Red Eagle Games as a separate legal entity, they had the rights to the video games, and separately they had the rights to the film TV adaptation. And then they sold those to Sony, and I think that they still have the rights to the video games. So on one hand, they sold all the rights that they had acquired from Robert Jordan for the TV show and everything. And then the other hand, they're like, okay, now that the show's doing well, let's go over and see who wants to make a Wheel of Time video game. It's a popular thing over here.
Yeah.
And so,
I'd be amazed. I'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I would play.
And I also know that, but again, I don't know if I know at one point that was certainly the plan. I don't know if that's been executed upon. I don't know. Really, there hasn't been usually when that stuff, because over the years, several times they got some efforts going. They were starting a mobile thing for a little while, like 10 years ago. Like they were doing, like when mobile became a thing, when everyone first started getting the first iPhones, like they started dabbling in a possible casual, bejeweled like Wheel of Time, whatever, something silly like that. Who knows? And then they dabbled in some bigger games. They did a Kickstarter for a game that infamously, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, was really poorly done and never completed. And they ended up canceling after a few days because of the negative feedback that the fans gave. You can Google that. Google Kickstarter and Wheel of Time. See what you find.
I'll check that
out. And but I think that stuff will happen eventually. I know that there's either related to the TV show, like an official board game or video game that is from the world of the TV show. That's one thing, and then there's probably an argument to be maybe that they'll make a game or a tabletop game or a card game or whatever based off of the books. There's been so quiet.
Yeah. On that note,
we're gonna get like a Wheel of Time Monopoly, is what we're gonna get.
Oh, God,
we might. And
that would be based on
what would be Park Place?
I would still play it. I would still
think
play.
Think about Game of Thrones. Okay, so think about Game of Thrones. If you look at that, there are Game of Thrones Monopoly, Game of Thrones Risk, there's Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones video games, adventure games, war games. There's T-shirts that you can buy at Target. There's everything. That is that's somebody out there. That's their goal, and maybe even their job right now is to make that happen for Wheel of Time. And I don't know the status of the rights to make that happen. Yeah, it'd be nice, and I think
I know that's their job. They're taking a lot of content creators' merch offline.
And that's because the Jordan estate, they, they did great things, but they also weren't very consistent, as I understood it, with their legal agreements that they had with all the various merchants out there, and they just kind of signed up for whatever, like if you want to build something, sure, and they didn't really control. They didn't do a ton of quality control. They did some things where like, hey, you want to design an Aes Sedai ring? Great, send it to us and look at it and say, oh, this looks awesome, great, approved. And there wasn't a ton of continuity or consistency across the brand. And I know that's what the Red Eagle team was trying to do, was to say like, we can be that consistency to make sure that, the lore of the video games matches the lore of the television show, which matches the lore of the books, ideally. And that if you buy an Aes Sedai ring, like we brand, this is what an Aes Sedai ring looks like. And you will see it consistently in the video games, in the TV show, in the books. And
gosh,
I don't know if
what,
that actually happened.
There's already a board game, and it's completely unlicensed. I just there's a fan-made created like board game that's he called it Third Age. It's like balanced, it's play tested, it's on Tabletop Simulator, really, and I know he's tried to contact somebody about like, can I do this, or do you want this, because it's already developed and it's a really good game, and I think it's been cricket so
is a
far.
good game.
But gosh, it's such a good game. I wish it would work out. Whoever's in charge of the game rights. But
I don't know where the quality check went on that watch, but what other stuff out there?
The watch, I should have worn it. So I had it, and I actually had a chance to I talked to the people several times by phone and Zoom with them after the watch was developed, and they were really surprised by what the negative reaction they got because of the snake, and they didn't know, and no one had told them. And it wasn't that it wasn't that they were like trying to milk it in. What it was, that this began with Amazon. Amazon said, we would like some products made, and specifically somebody, I forget who, it was probably someone very high up at Prime Video. I don't know if it was Jeff Bezos or who, but someone said, that we would love to have a high-end Wheel of Time watch, and let's make it. And they said, great, a high-end, for us, a high-end watch costs, thousands of dollars. And they said, okay, well, how about a medium level watch? One that and they said, okay, we can do that. And here's what it's going to entail, and here's what we can do. and they submitted those designs to Amazon. And my understanding, please do not quote me because I do not know for sure, but my understanding is that those were given the green light. That somebody there at Amazon said, yes, this design passes muster. It did not roll up to, it didn't roll up to Rafe Judkins. Rafe is not sitting there. Sarah Nakamura is not sitting there saying whatever, But
it's
but
a
it wouldn't
beautiful
surprise
watch.
me.
I just don't think it's Wheel of Time.
Yeah. Now that said, I know that Talker, who is the name of the company, Talker is they haven't taken me up on it, but I told them, I said, look, if you make more Wheel of Time watches, I'll sign an NDA. I haven't signed anything with them, but I said, I'll sign an NDA and I'll give you my feedback on this. If you want to give me your designs, I'll give you feedback and I'll let you know if it's accurate to the books and or TV show, I know you got to submit to Amazon, but if you're able to, bring me on as a consultant and I'll do that, and so, and that's something I've done for a lot of other people, not a lot of other groups over the years. They made a Wheel of Time collectible card game like Magic the Gathering, but Wheel of Time. That's a thing that's out there.
That's interesting.
It was like in 1999 and 2000. The company went under in the early 2000s.
Oh man,
that was like the first Wheel of Time product that I consulted on. Then the graphic novels, all the various book covers that you see these days. Those are things that, not all of them, but a lot of them I've had input on. And
I'm sorry. So
sometimes
it's your fault that we lost the sweet covers.
No.
The original
Oh,
hardcovers being lost are because of you.
But the ones that replaced them were the ebook covers. Which I still think of them as the new covers, and they're like
those are
15
nice.
years old at this point. And those were Tor said, hey, ebooks are becoming a thing now, and we want to make new covers for the Wheel of Time. Because Wheel of Time is to this day, and for the last 30 years, has been their best-selling product.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's up there with brand new. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the wheel, any given copy of the Wheel of Time, like the Path of Daggers, every week outsells by a factor of 1,000 most other books. It's stunning how many.
Wow.
I can't say the numbers, but it is measured in thousands every week. The number of copies of every Wheel of Time book that sells.
I can't find a paperback Memory of Light. What the hell?
It's tough. It is a tough thing to find. The original art, though, right?
Yeah. That's the thing.
So,
yeah.
So, but those ebook covers, those were a lot of fun. Irene Gallo, who is the former art director at Tor, she's now the publisher of Tor.com. She's the head honcho of Tor.com.
Nice.
Which is separate from Tor Books. Tor.com is its own thing, separate. They're like sibling companies now. But she was the art director, and she was the one who didn't do the artwork, but she's the one who oversaw the creation of all the book covers that came out of Tor Books for years and years and years, including all the Wheel of Time covers. She approached me and said, like, hey, we're going to be doing this new series of Wheel of Time covers. And we want to, Harriet has made some requests, like for book 1, she really wanted to see Rand standing on the mast of a ship with his windswept hair. And she had a specific artist in mind that she admired. And so that's what she wanted to see. And so that's what they delivered.
I love the Gathering Storm one. Obviously. Well, Egwene's my favorite character. So.
That you're welcome. I believe that was my specific idea. And I went to him and said, Egwene has this. Before the book was released, because I beta read it, I said, Egwene really shines in this book. She has this really wonderful moment where, with the Torakin or whatever. And I said, let's make it cool. I know that the one where Rand is being fireballed with Min next to him in book 11, that was my idea. Book 13, Perrin and the Hammer. I said, you have to do this scene.
Yes.
You must do this scene with Perrin and the Flame.
Probably my favorite.
Yeah,
I heard that Egwene really shines in the last book too.
Wow.
Yeah,
Come on.
I have to do it. I gotta keep Kritter grounded.
Grounded? What am I doing to not be grounded? So what is your favorite cover of all the covers of all the Wheel of Time books, old and new, Jason?
My favorite one. Oh man. I have a real thing. I love the new French covers. Have you seen those? We feature those in
French
Dragonmount.
ones are insane.
The French. Yeah, go ahead. And we did a YouTube video. You can Google it if you look on Dragonmount's YouTube channel. Kitty Rallo does a breakdown of the covers. What they did is they took each of the books and split them in half. So there's 28 novels, and
Wow.
yeah,
France, they have the
28
whole
novels.
the full series.
The full
What half?
series.
Yeah, the ones
they
you held
haven't.
up are like
they
the
haven't. I don't
YA
think they've done the most.
Yeah.
I think they've only gotten through book like 11 or so, maybe
Wow.
11 or 12. I don't know if they've gotten quite to the end, but what they do is that they have a different cover for all of those, and all it is the same design, and they have these amazing designs of whatever item, whatever the MacGuffin is for that story. So there's like a broken seal on one of them. There's the ruby hilted dagger on another. There's Kalendor on another,
These are
and it's just that
Yeah.
object.
Yeah, they
the
have
cool
some really
design.
cool stuff.
I've seen those too.
Yeah, so I love those. Of the other covers,
They got like
I-
1 and 2 split in half with Scholastic.
right, yeah, 1 and 2, the Blight and From the Two Rivers,
Yeah.
and then books 2 were split up too.
Yeah, exactly.
I of the old
There
school
you go.
covers.
She got one up.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It looks
There you
amazing.
go,
Good.
awesome.
Mm.
Yeah, there you go.
Du Temps.
Rue de Tom.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it in French. I'm not even going to pretend. I think this
La
one's
Rue du Temps.
You did pretty good, I
Rue du
think.
Temps.
the Ice and Ice symbol.
Yeah,
I assume.
the P is silent. The P and the S are silent. Tom, like
Tom.
like the person Tom. La Rue.
Eh, absolutely.
Rue de Temps? Really?
La Rue
Something like
de
that.
Tom.
I don't know. Someone in the chat
Well,
room speak
I
French.
even love the snake that they have in the background.
The
for
edge, like it's etched into the book. That's
Yeah,
super
but
cool.
the design of it is
Really good
sick.
detailing.
It's like a
Mhm.
basilisk.
Yeah. that is-
But to answer your ultimate
Cool.
question, I think that at the end of the day, my heart will forever be with the original Daryl Sweet cover of the Dragon Reborn, where Rand is in reaching for
Oh,
Kalendor.
A classic.
That was the cover that drew me to the series, and I'd never read the book,
Oh,
never heard of
that's
them, but I
cool.
saw that cover and I got it, and I thought, well, if I got this is book 3, clearly I have to get the other 2 first. But I
Yeah.
love that cover. That was one that drew 13-year-old me to it, and that Robert Jordan, the original paintings that were done, the original paint on canvas, most of those have actually, I don't even know if we collectively, if the public knows where all of the originals are. They were either given as gifts or they were purchased and sold later on, but some of them are out there. A lot of them are with the family, Robert Jordan's wider family. But the painting of the Dragon Reborn is in his house. I took a picture of it when I was there last December, put it in social media.
Yeah, I think I
It
saw that.
sits right out. It sits right outside his old bedroom, and so it's right outside the bedroom. And sorry if you've heard this, but maybe some of the newer fans have heard this. But the story is that Harriet one night woke up in the middle of the night or whatever, and looked out of her bedroom because the doors were open. She could look out in the hallway, and the painting was there. And there's Baalzamon, the Forsaken, right, with his face, like screaming, in this
No.
dark hallway, and it freaked her out. So she hired Daryl Sweet to come and paint over the face of the original painting. So if you look at that original painting, and again, there's a picture of it online, sure enough, Baalzamon is not there. He's been painted over because it freaked
Oh
Harry.
my
That is
gosh.
so funny. Oh my gosh.
But
That
that kind
is
of
funny.
what at first when I heard that I was like appalled. I'm like, oh my god, that art, But now I'm like, that makes it even better story.
makes
Like
it-
what a cool,
Way better.
that's even cooler.
Yeah, there's your balls. And in case you were curious, that's what we got deleted from the cover. I don't know. I think the Lord of Chaos cover is so funny. Like it is so
Yeah.
iconic. I absolutely adore it.
And I said, please take my hotel key room. Come to my hotel later. Here's my key.
I gotta show this one too because it kills. Lord,
Put it
Chaos,
up
that's
there.
What I searched. Like, what is wrong with me? We gotta wrap up the stream, but we gotta show you the Lord of Chaos cover first because it's the best. Oh wow, just showing me Amazon. I don't want Amazon. I just want the image, guys. Just the image. Drift book, sure. This should do it. That's not it either. This is ridiculous. So, what are your guys' favorite covers, Winespring and Tavern, while I'm doing this?
Mine's the one with Perrin and the fire. And I think, is he holding the hammer?
Oh, from the ebooks?
Forging Hammer.
Yeah, I like that.
actually like the.
Here we go.
I think it's To the Blight cover. The second half of book 1 on the
Wow,
Scholastic
because
one.
of Celine.
Wow.
That's where
No, it's
Egwene's
not
getting
even
her
that.
hair pulled.
No.
There's like a tree that's like pulling Egwene's hair or something in that.
No,
cover.
they're fighting.
Oh,
they're
wow.
fighting their way on horseback. But yes,
There's a
her
blight,
hair,
yeah.
her hair is caught. Yeah, her hair is caught.
Oh,
in,
yeah,
in the
that
branches.
one.
Yeah, the
Wow, I
ring light's
forgot
a little
about
weird
that
there, but
Yeah,
but
it's cool.
I would love that.
That is cool.
Yeah, Lord of Chaos is simply iconic.
There it
and the
is.
fact that like that backdrop was at Jordan Con to take photos with was just
Fabio.
a dream. Like my first Jordan Con could not have been better just because of this. I got to
say
take
that
pictures in front of this.
Rand looks like he's 40 in that.
That's a
Yeah,
problem
he
with a
really
lot of the
does.
covers. Let's be
That's
honest.
the original 35-year-old
Yeah.
Rand right there. That's what that.
There you go.
Oh, it
Yes.
kills me. Okay,
Right?
we're descending. So let's wrap this up, shall we? Jason, this was so much fun to have you on. We usually do like a final words. If there was something you meant to say and didn't get a chance, or something you want to say to wrap up your thoughts for the day, whatever. Just now's your chance, man. What do you?
Yeah.
want to
So
say?
I mean, first I again want to just restate my gratitude and thanks for having me on, and I'm inviting myself back for another time. So
Yeah,
absolutely,
I'm coming again. Hopefully you want me.
100%,
and
100%.
Yeah, so I'd love to come back on and do it again. And for everyone out there, again, if you're intrigued by anything, any of my writing, the Mystic Trilogy, those first 2 books are each on sale through the end of October, $2.99 a piece. That's, I don't know, that's like a coffee, right? Is that what they say? Like
Cheaper
the
than
same
coffee.
price as a
Yeah.
Starbucks coffee,
I was gonna say,
right? Yeah, they
Starbucks.
both of them. So yeah, please consider checking them out. If they're also on Audible, so if you're or on any audiobook, so whether Libra.fm or Audible, you can get them there. They're read by Mary Robinette Kowal, who is an amazing. Probably many of you watching this know her. She's an amazing Hugo Award-winning author who also has a book coming out on the same day, October 11th. So check her book out.
Look at that.
Oh,
But she
nice.
reads,
Cool.
she reads all 3 books in the series and does a fantastic, amazing job. She's a true professional. And then if you like it, then please consider picking up a copy of Mystic Skies. It comes out October 11th, a week from today. I will be, if you're in Northern California, check out my website and social media. I'll be doing a book event where I'll sign it and stuff, and then I'll be in Portland, Oregon on October 17th, Robert Jordan's birthday. I will be at Powell's in Beaverton doing a book signing there. So it's a
Very
2 events
cool.
in person to look forward to. And if you
Complete
want to sign a copy,
opposite.
go to my website. Yeah, if you order a copy of the books through a physical copy of the books through my local indie store called A Seat at the Table Books, here in Northern California, just outside Sacramento. If you just go to my website, you'll follow the links. You can order through them, and I'll sign every copy that they sell. So you get a signed copy that way.
All right. That's
we
really
order-
All the
great.
stuff is on my website, jasondenzel.com. So thank
Can
you
we
so much for having
order
me.
the trilogy and have you sign all of them?
I believe so. The first 2 books are getting hard to find in print, and so I trying to work that out with my publisher right now. You're kind of like, come on, guys, but they're getting harder and harder to find in print. But there's plenty of copies of the 3rd one, and then I'll be most likely. I haven't bought tickets yet, but I'm planning to be at JordanCon
Nice.
this year, and so I will be in April. So you can see me there. The paperback of Mystic Skies will be out, and I will be at Brandon's Dragonsteel Con in November. So next month
Oh, cool.
in November, I'll have a
Yeah.
booth there. So come by and meet me, and I'll be sitting on a Wheel of Time panel with Matt Hatch, Innkeeper, and Daniel Green. We'll be doing a whole thing there.
Where's that con at?
It's in Salt Lake City.
I figured
I
it might
think it's
probably be
way
Utah.
sold out.
Yeah, it's Utah.
They just released.
Yeah.
It was way sold out pretty quickly, but then they did release
Yeah.
some more tickets, some more
Oh, they
badges,
did.
but
Okay.
those probably went fast too. So I
They
don't know.
announced it
Probably.
like yesterday or today, so yeah, they're probably gone by now.
Yeah, check it out if you're
Dang,
still
I
interested
totally
in going.
missed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Amazing. So
But anyways, thank you all for your support. Yeah, thank you for your support,
Yeah.
and thank you all
Thank you.
who's watching this and listening. Thank you for your support and
Yeah, we love
sticking
you
around
guys.
and considering picking up. So,
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay, Tavern, last words from you.
Or is Sauron.
Okay.
I would
Come
like
on,
to see.
get
I
out
would.
of here.
I would like to.
You
This
didn't
time.
even talk about Rings of Power.
I
have all these
know.
hot
I
takes
know.
on
That's why I threw
know.
that in there. I threw that in there for that. I would love to see a spin-off like House of the Dragons for the Wheel of Time, but the Age of Legends. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, we saw that in the chat.
That would
a
be.
great idea.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, don't forget to hit the like button
The like
And
button is
smash it.
appreciated.
and love us. We're lovable.
All right, Winespring.
Okay, final thoughts. I would say I would love to see a trilogy series made into an anime, the style
yeah.
of Vox Machina, very
Ooh.
specifically. That
Really?
would be so cool. Yeah, I vote for that. If I
That'd
could
be
vote
pretty
for
sweet.
that somewhere. Yeah.
That'd be pretty
Final
cool.
thoughts.
Excellent.
That would
I'd
be.
take it.
Excellent final thought. And I'll just say that, Jason, this was so much fun to talk to you again. It had been too long. I will be going live at some point on Friday. Be looking for the deets for that because of the New York Comic Con stuff. Hopefully we'll get... I'm hoping for a release date. That's what I want more than anything else. But obviously, I'll take a trailer. I mean, but I just really want a release date. Is all I really want at this point. So I'll be live on Friday sometime. I also have a stream scheduled already, playing the Third Age Wheel of Time fan-made board game on Saturday morning, starting at 11 a.m. Central Time. So if you want to check out that game, see what it's all about, all you need is Tabletop Simulator on Steam in order to play it. And it's a really great game. And hopefully James can get the attention of somebody who has the rights to the board game, and then they can get that made in real life, because I really want to own that thing and put it on my shelf, because it's a great game.
It's a good game.
So yeah, that stream, a Friday stream, and then we'll be back next week on the Wheel and Chill Pivot, and we'll be catching up on Rings of Power stuff. So we'll be talking about two episodes. And there will only be one episode left, so times are getting pretty intense with the show at this point. And thank you guys all.
Rings of Power.
It's exploding.
It is exploding. Okay.
It's gotten so good.
I'm so
Yes,
yeah,
it
I
has.
agree, but we're gonna save that for next week. We're gonna talk
Next
about
week.
Next week.
Next week.
And thank you for everyone in the chat who showed up. Some of you don't always make it. Glenn, we appreciate you being here. Stephanie Northcott, Nimhithril, Anas. It's so many, too many to say. All Razier, you guys are all the
Julie.
best.
Julie's here a lot.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I guess that's it. Thank you to Jason, Tavern, Winespring. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
And we'll be back
Stay there.
next week. Okay, bye.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye.